economic growth, ecosystem development, racial wealth gap closing, generational wealth creation. These are just a few of the buzzwords that sound important and are in our news headlines today. The accepted definition of each of these words, in theory, makes communications about complicated topics clearer and perhaps more expedient. However, buzzwords can unintentionally dilute the reality of the problems that we want to tackle. I am happy to have this opportunity to participate in the 2021 Yes Wilmington event, to share perspectives and to challenge and to encourage you all to forget the buzzwords. I'm Lyneir Richardson, and I just want to do two things. First, I want to spend most of my time sharing with you why I believe that we have a strategic moment to brainstorm systemic change and to create new growth business plans that will catalyze and accelerate inclusive economic development. And then I want to share some strategies that will foster inclusive growth, especially in urban, ethnic, and underserved areas. That's where I focus at. And that's where I believe if we make the strategic investments now, we'll see macroeconomic accomplishment and GDP growth in our region. So I think we all know the problem. In fact, I started to come in and do, the statistics again around income inequality, around racial wealth gap. And to the extent that anyone is not aware of the problem or needs better framing, I'm going to just refer you to a recent Brookings report. A guy named Andre Perry has done some great work around what would happen if people of color contributed to our macroeconomic growth in our economy. Now, I've worked in over 18 cities across the US, and one thing is increasingly clear. Wealth is created by owning assets that generate revenue and assets that appreciate over time. So last year, I started thinking about these questions. What systemic changes are needed to narrow the racial wealth gap and strengthen our economy? And then what would happen if each community that I was working in created a place-based business plan for getting more resources to people and places that have been overlooked and undervalued? How can we move more people of color and help them to own businesses and commercial real estate and other assets? Now, just a little bit about me. For over 26 years now, I've been doing this work, and man, I got battle scars and war wounds to prove it. I enjoy seeing communities create reality-based goals that are still ambitious. I've been in the trenches as an entrepreneur. I started my career building homes in the toughest areas of the city. I borrowed money from noteworthy community banks and nonprofit lenders and foundations. As a corporate executive, I've caused millions of dollars to be invested in retail development in underserved areas. And as head of economic development in Newark, New Jersey, I've worked closely with two mayors to bring over $2 billion of projects from the pipeline to the finish line. I now lead the Entrepreneurship Center at Rutgers Business School, and I own a real estate investment and advisory services firm. It's really a social enterprise that has raised over $20 million from philanthropically motivated impact investors and CDFI partners. When I look over the last year, I call 2020 the year of pandemic, of protest, and of political pandemonium. We all can look back on 2020 with hindsight now. The disparities were highlighted, especially in the neighborhoods and with the populations that I know need our investment. Black neighborhoods have not kept pace with the positive things happening overall in our cities. Does it look wrong to you? Does it nag at you? Or do you just think, look, it's a capitalistic society. We just have to accept that in America, there's going to be rich and poor. Some people will have and others will have not. Education, ambition, decision, good fortunes, victim of circumstances, blessings or the curse of birth, health. There are, a myriad of factors that cause inequality. But I ask you today, what about the systems? What about the systems? So I look at my father and the systems who helped him to overcome growing up in public housing, Black man and poor, and ultimately becoming my first hero, my first urban economic success story. He went to the Air Force after graduating from high school, and that changed the trajectory of his life. He got skills and military benefits that allowed him to graduate from a community college and then get a job and buy a house and start a business and ultimately send my brother and I to college into the best graduate schools in America. And as a consequence, we escaped the hardships of the hood, many of them. And my father's grandchildren are on track to achieve education and economic success beyond even his wildest dreams. Now, he talks a lot still about the racism he faced and the hardships of discrimination that he had to overcome. But in my economic development work, in my academic career, I've come to appreciate the fact that systems can help. Systems helped him. High school, Air Force, community college, home ownership, small business loans, starting a business. And so in the midst of 2020, I started to have more and more Zoom meetings that we start them as brainstorming sessions related to what changes are needed, that evolve to what systemic changes are needed to help more people of color to find their way to economic prosperity in our communities. So I want to pause and pose some of these questions to you, both as leaders and to the people grinding in Wilmington today. How do we boldly change how we do economic development so that people who live in racially segregated neighborhoods have incomes and educational levels that are on par with the national average? How can we create more jobs so that we see fewer news alerts about crime and violence? What can we do to drive commercial corridor development in the neighborhoods so that we see more businesses that are community serving and that are employing local people? What would we need to do to jumpstart 100 or 500 new businesses and help 100 or 500 existing businesses in Wilmington to grow? Right? Here's what I like about brainstorming. If it's done correctly, we encourage bold ideas. We don't turn our nose up to bad ideas. We don't even judge as the list of ideas is being generated. Inevitably, a few remarkable ideas bubble up to the top. They challenge us. And in this process, I've also started to work with entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs of color who are in our community. And it became evident to me that in this process, we need to ask them, how can we help you? And in some instances, I've created this little memo. I call it the Help Me, Help You memo. Short little documents, less than 3 pages, where I seek to find out simple questions. What are you trying to do? What resources do you have? What resources do you need to accomplish your objective? I know it sounds simple, and it's more like the old school employee suggestion box, but the solutions are often found with the people. It's like anything else, the voice of the customer. Anything for us, about us, without us is not for us. So if we're really going to try to help entrepreneurs and help entrepreneurs of color, I almost want to have in writing, in bullet point even, how can we help you? So help me help you. Right? I put that into a memo. And the ideas are starting to really gel. On paper, once we see them, we can hone and refine them. We can help get projects, again, that are stuck or stalled for some reason moving. And we can celebrate success as we build momentum. Again, inevitably, a few things will be revealed that can help advance projects and really energize our economy. Now, when these things are done with earnest intent, you'll find that these sessions re-energize people, right? It helps us to really think about how to stabilize and revitalize the most distressed areas in our communities. It gives us hope that together we can do deals, we can change systems, we can adjust how we allocate resources, and we can create wealth and jobs. By listening closely, we will know from each other where to place our bets and how to invest in programs and policies and in enterprises. So I just encourage you to keep anti-Black racism sort of in focus, right? I got to put that in there. Again, if we're going to do inclusive growth, we got to put inclusion right at the center of all our work. The goal is to empower people of color to lead and drive and own new prosperity as is being created in old areas of our community. Secondly, all the brainstorming sessions and the help me help you memos will provide the basis for our inclusive growth business plan. And I like the inclusive growth business plan. The objective is action steps that guide us to doing things that empower entrepreneurs of color and strengthen communities. The business plan will be our guide for how we do capitalism and community development differently and intentionally in a more inclusive way. Any good business plan has a mission, has vision, goals. So I mentioned 100 new jobs, 100 new business, 1,000 new jobs, $5 million of new ratables, $20 million of capital deployed. Pick the goals that are right for Wilmington. But we'll have financial projections and competitive analysis and marketing plan and the old school SWOT analysis, key position descriptions and budgets, right? Our business plan will articulate the action steps. What's the return on investment that we expected? What are the key performance indicators that will be measured? How do we monitor our progress so that corrections can be made? It designates key executives and recognizes and rewards success. So the business plan, anything that we want to accomplish, typically has some strategic plan, rewards, resources, vision. And I have liked tying in the inclusive growth business plan because I know they'll make our city, our region more competitive. Perhaps we can align this business plan with our ESG goals, right? We know that the neighborhoods, the Black and brown communities of our region, if they got stronger, our region would get stronger. So I'm encouraging Wilmington to develop an inclusive growth business plan that will carry it over the next 24 to 36 months. And I think it should be bold, but reality-based. It should examine and incorporate the best practices from around the country. Who's doing what to strengthen communities? Who's doing what to connect communities of color and distressed neighborhoods to economic growth? It needs to have truth serum, and that business plan needs to be backed by resources. Now, I want to just share a few examples of how the systemic change and the business plan work are coming together on exciting projects that I personally am working on in Chicago, in Newark, New Jersey, in Baltimore, Maryland, in Rochester, New York. Right. So first, and I call this work, most of it falls in the categories of vehicles and vessels, and data and deal making, and dollars, and the numbers and the narrative. So let me give you an example. So we're providing hands-on advisory services and deal-specific capacity building programs in a few of the communities that I mentioned. It's funded by leading banks and our philanthropic partners who have engaged us to provide advisory services and patient, flexible, equity-like capital to Black entrepreneurs. We are working collaboratively with our CDFI partners that are already existing in the community, that have been long-standing assets. And the goal is to add capacity both to the CDFIs and how they evaluate and underwrite deals, as well as originating new projects, but then also working with our community development organizations to help them structure projects, identify entrepreneurs, again, and originate and underwrite deals that can be funded. Our job is really sort of providing guidance, structuring deals. Well, there's a disconnect. There's all this good energy around. We want to help drive more investment. And there's true energy and passion in the entrepreneurial ecosystem and in the community of entrepreneurs. But there's a disconnect, and I call that getting projects investment ready, right? There needs to be someone on the team who can roll up their sleeves and work shoulder to shoulders with entrepreneurs on the business model, the pro forma development, the communication of what the opportunity will be to actually get capital into deals to drive deals, right? So first it's a different, old school, we called it technical assistance. I think it's a different twist on technical assistance. And technical assistance in some respects seems like, well, people don't know what they're doing. This is, you have an idea, there's capital available. What do we need to do to bring those together, right? And typically, I've found it's all around creating pro formas, to creating a budget, to creating the narrative around what return on investment will be. Secondly, focusing on new growth and next economy innovation. I've been having some fun shining light on new growth and high growth business sectors in our future economy. I call it NEED, Next Economy Entrepreneurship and Economic Development. My work is to encourage more Black entrepreneurs specifically to start, to expand, to invest in businesses that are aligned with growth sectors that will generate, trillions of dollars over the next decades. Healthcare, green energy, tech-enabled, AR, VR, AI, legal cannabis, drones, autonomous vehicles, cryptocurrency, fintech. Now, people say, wait a minute, we're talking about elements of our economy that, we can't get everybody now in AR and VR, and everybody now, working on, legal cannabis, right? But this is where workforce development and economic development are inextricably connected, right? This is about jobs of the future, careers of the future, businesses of the future. And so I think there's an opportunity for us all to build confidence in people who are looking for jobs and entrepreneurs who are imagining their next venture, right? With information, removing barriers, shining the light on the nuances of these next economy business opportunities, making the connection. You got an old entrepreneurial skill, or an old economy, business, how do I connect that old economy business model with the next economy business opportunity? I have fun always with my favorite joke around legal cannabis. It's legal in New Jersey and now in Illinois, around people who operate little bake shops, cupcakes, and restaurants. Like, well, all right, cannabis is legal now. Let's bake some cannabis into our cupcakes. I always get my wife's eye roll with that example. But again, whether someone's operating an old auto repair shop, we have this great business in Newark, New Jersey. A Latina entrepreneur owns a car repair business, and we said, what if you could repair drones? What if you thought about repairing some of the autonomous vehicles? Just getting ready and just marketing your services in that way, that as the industries continue to grow, you're at the leading edge. You're owning and driving. So when we communicate to our economic development officials in New Jersey, it's all about how do we help entrepreneurs get to next economy entrepreneurship. Finally, patient, flexible capital, right? Access to capital always comes up. And again, I don't like cliches, right? So our brainstorming sessions really focused on what are new opportunities for deal making. So imagine this in Wilmington. If you could make a $20 to $50 million commitment to initiatives that will support new entrepreneurs, next economy growth entrepreneurship, racial justice investing in initiatives, and just purposely connect entrepreneurs to this capital, right? To get the capital there, it requires systemic changes in underwriting how the deals are done, right? First, right? Who gets money? How much equity is required? How do we assess risk? Just ask, what have we always done? What have always been the barriers to entrepreneurs of color getting capital? And what part of that system can we change it? I've had some examples where we've never lent more than 80% LTV, our CDFI partners. Well, we've encouraged them, under what circumstances could you make LTV 90%? Right? What would need to be in place? Can our philanthropic partners provide some first loss guarantee, right? That would allow more capital to be available to entrepreneurs. It's been really cool recently to see in Chicago, the Chicago Community Trust provide pre-development grants, right? So someone that has an idea for development of a lot or redevelopment of of some type of commercial corridor, typically to get capital, that first $50,000, $100,000 of capital for planning and architects and engineers. And this is not just capital going straight to nonprofit organizations. This is capital that's fueling entrepreneurial growth, right? Just flexible, patient capital. Secondly, in New Jersey, we've done stuff around institutionalizing the friends and family round of capital. We've created a new angel investment, the Black and Latino Angel Investment Fund of New Jersey. And we found 10 local individuals who all committed, initially wrote a $5,000 check and then committed $50,000 of their own capital over 3 years to invest in growth companies led by people of color, to see opportunity different, right? And then ultimately, it's institutionalizing how capital gets allocated. Who gets the early stage capital? Who gets to launch their initiative? And we've now gotten some institutional partners. We've got a $300,000 federal grant just because we started it, right? Our best fund, we call it Black Entrepreneurship Survive and Thrive program, which provides no cost equity and growth capital for projects, right? For existing businesses to innovate, to add a delivery truck, to in some way create a project that's going to grow, right? So again, helping existing entrepreneurs as well as creating new ones. And then finally, I am loving our work around inclusive ownership of commercial property. We have now bought 3 shopping centers, and we have 2 more that we're working on that are in African American communities where we did all of the initial work. We identified the property, we did the due diligence, we underwrote the deal, we structured the financing, we did the appraisal and evaluation and environmental reports. And then we offered entrepreneurs in the community and just residents in the community an opportunity to invest and own the project, asking ourselves to imagine, would the community get stronger? Would we be able to make an asset better if people had an ownership stake in it, right? So instead of that being a shopping center we have no connection to, we're structured a deal that allow the person down the street, anyone over the age of 18, to make $1,000 or more investment to have an ownership interest. This is what I mean by vehicles investors, right? This is what I mean by rolling up your sleeves and working shoulder to shoulder. And there are thousands of other examples, but they take intentionality. They take commitment. They take doing stuff differently. They take what looked like risk in our traditional systems to, have a different risk assessment model. And I said, take new partners. Again, our philanthropic partners, our banking partners, to do it in a different way, to invest in our CDFIs, to create new organizations. So in conclusion, look, it's about how we tell our stories. And economic developers and community developers are generally really good at telling the story. Hey, sometimes it's about both the narrative and the numbers. How many more people were putting the work? What's the return on investment? How do we show impact in an unconventional way? Not just jobs created and retained, but new numbers. Is crime decreasing? Are educational achievements happening? Is there other investment? Are there more people who never had an opportunity owning? Are we getting capital deployed in ways that are different? This is a moment for action without apology. This is a moment for systems change. And Wilmington, I encourage you, this is our moment. Make this a movement. Thank you.